You are now entering the horror sanctum.
Hello, and welcome back to the Horror Sanctum podcast. I'm Jay with Johnny and Kelan. And every now and again, we catch wind of a highly anticipated horror flick. And it seems like 2024 has had several of them. But I think the one that we've heard about the most is the one we picked to talk about today. It's gory, it's visually different, and the reviews have been very mixed, which, you know, when you have an indie horror film, that's usually the way things go. But we are here today to talk about In a Violent Nature, directed by Chris Nash. Synopsis is, if you're not familiar, and if you listen to this podcast, we assume that you are horror fans, so you probably know all about this film already. But in case you don't, a group of teens take a locket from a collapsed fire tower, which you can see behind me, in the woods. They unwittingly resurrect the rotting corpse of Johnny, a vengeful spirit spurred on by a horrific 60-year-old crime. The undead killer soon embarks on a bloody rampage to retrieve the stolen locket, methodically slaughtering anyone who gets in his way. So put on your walking shoes and let's get started. And as always, this is a new film, so there are going to be spoilers. Fun enough, all my notes are on my phone for the first time, so we'll see how that goes. I usually type everything up, but I watched this at home last night in the dark instead of watching on my tablet like I normally do, and I highly recommend you guys do the same. This is also a film I think would have been great in theaters to see, but we didn't do that. So first of all, I'm wearing my Jason Lives Friday 13th shirt because this is a goddamn Friday the 13th movie. I don't care what you say. It is. It's influenced by Friday the 13th. It's influenced by Texas Chainsaw Massacre, and I think Terrifier 2, or Terrifier as well, because it's super violent, and that's the trend now, right? Like we've discussed it before. The trend now is not so much to scare you with jump scares or with plot. It's what can we get away with, and what can we show you that's so fucked up you're going to tell your friends about this movie. They succeeded in this film a few times. First off, last night watching it, I thought it was Frozen because the beginning is all leaves and then they're kind of talking. So I'm like, oh, okay, maybe this is a bad link because of the way that we watched this film. Like maybe I don't know. And I'm sitting there for a second and it finally, you can see leaves moving. So, okay, so there we go. So the entire movie is shot from the killer's point of view. And I love that idea. It's not something that we've had before. We're always following the final girl, or we're following, the guys and teenagers. So doing something like that, I think, was a great idea. Whoever came up with that, bravo. You did something different. You thought outside the box. Usually in other movies, we don't see the trip. We just see the result. Like, how did Jason get over there? We don't know. Well, this shows you how Jason gets over there. He just fucking walks. And this is one of the most exhausting movies I have ever watched in my life. It's only like a buck 22, buck 28. Like it's not very long, but the dude, homie, walks the entire time. And like if I'm walking, like going on hikes, there needs to be a waterfall. We do get a cliff, which is something we'll get into too. But not even halfway through the movie, you're exhausted because this dude's just slowly walking. What I think the film did well was the suspense and the dread. I guess we could say it was scary. In my notes, I kind of say, was it that scary or was it more uncomfortable? But I think they did a pretty solid job on both, and here's why. So he's walking, all you hear is the leaves, him walking through it, but then you slowly start to hear people talking, and that's when that dread kicks in because like, oh shit, he's getting closer. And I think that was brilliant. That lead up, it's almost like several little movies in one that they shoved together, which, Kel and I have discussed, it probably should have been a short film. It probably was originally, and they're like, let's go bigger. So you get a lot of dialogue towards the end, especially. It reminded me kind of just from that standpoint of Bridesmaids. My issue when I watched Bridesmaids was every joke took like 18 minutes, it felt like, and like it was just too many things compiled onto another one. This one was kind of the same way, but that dread was perfect in my opinion. They should have had a warning label before you started the movie. Like if you're over the age of 40 and you're going to watch this, pop to a leave. before you start because my knee was hurting by the end of it from walking so much. It's like the opposite of a Tom Cruise movie. Instead of Tom Cruise running all over the damn place, it's just one guy, Johnny, just slowly, methodically walking to kill these people who took a damn locket. Um, Another one of the best scenes I thought was the lake scene. And that's a scene that takes a bit of time, but that whole time you're plugged in because you're like, okay, he should be there by now. He should be at the dock by now. And then eventually he gets there, the girl goes under, the rest is history. Just little things like that really made me enjoy this movie a lot more than I thought. I think TJ brought it to our attention originally, and we were all like, nah, I don't know about that. And we may still be to a degree. And the Rotten Tomatoes score is 81 critic, 44 audience, which tracks. The cliff scene. If you haven't seen this movie, you don't know what we're talking about with the cliff scene, I would recommend pausing us, finding this film, seeking it out, watching it just for the cliff scene, which is one of the most brutal kills I've ever seen in my life. And it was done pretty well, I thought, except the neck bending, that was a little, stretchy. I'm just like watching that last night and I'm like, what the fuck? What the fuck? What happened to Johnny in his life that made him murder people in the way he does? And what the one thing I didn't like about the cliff kill is it was so early. So then you're like, is he going to outdo that? Because you're kind of expecting it to kind of gradually get worse, but it doesn't. There's the hatchet thing that was pretty rough too, but I think this was by far, I think you guys agree, the worst kill that actually made me feel it in my back. I'm like, fucking A. And I'm not going to go into, if you guys say what actually happens when your turn, that's fine. But Kelan and I also talked on the side a little bit. The mask, you didn't like the mask. I didn't have an issue with the mask. My biggest thing about it was looked like a minion. Like banana. I kept waiting for a minion voice to pop through because it did. It was just red. I don't understand the mask. I think they kind of talked about it in the film, but I don't quite understand what it was. It was made exclusively for this ritual or whatever, put him in the ground, but I didn't hate it. It was different, and I can appreciate different because we just regurgitate the same shit over and over and over again. So it's nice to see something new and original. Was it too long? Yeah. And like I said, it was only like $1.20 something, but it was still too long because of what happened. I would say a good 30 minutes is just walking, right? I think that's safe to say. And then another 15 is the car ride at the end. So there's 45 minutes of a movie that wasn't necessary. But again, that dread of him walking and and here comes the voice, and him watching from the woods, little things like that did it for me, made me appreciate this film a lot more. It was brutal for the sake of being brutal. Just like Terrifier 2, just like Terrifier 3 is going to be. Like, it's just, they're sitting there and like, what can we do to make people remember this? And that's the route they're going instead of dialogue or good acting. It was very heavily influenced by Friday the 13th, obviously, Texas Chainsaw Massacre, Terrifier. But even though it was mostly brutality and it was mostly just him eviscerating people, they still managed to scare me. Whereas with Terrifier 2, I don't think that was necessarily a scary movie. I haven't watched it probably a year. I could go back, but to my memory, it wasn't scary. It was just like shock, like, oh shit, what's he doing with that bleach and salt? It didn't give us scary moments, but this one did, just because that pacing, and he's coming, you just don't know how long it's going to take because he's not a very fast walker. He should kind of start to power walk a little bit. That might have helped it move along. But overall, I was pleasantly surprised how much I liked it. And we'll get to our rankings later, but I kind of went into this one on the fence. I'm like, I'm either going to hate it or I'm going to love it. I didn't think there was going to be much in between, and there really wasn't. But yeah, I enjoyed it overall.
Yeah, I didn't hate it. Let's start there, since everyone, I guess, with recent movies is going to think that that's the direction I'm going to go. I did not hate this movie. I hated that mask. I think that mask was one of the dumbest masks I've seen in horror history. It was just too clunky. Um, it didn't even seem like it fit him well.
You're
I
not
mean,
wrong on that either. You're not wrong about that at all.
I mean, even the
Did
one
they?
eye hole for Jason's mask in two, um, even as impractical as that is, it's still kind of terrifying to see him come out with that. This mask, I would have probably just died because I would have started laughing. Like, what the fuck is that? What is that? I'm dead. Um, but yeah, that and that kind of takes you out. I don't know why they even gave him any kind of mask if they're going to show him from behind most of the time, and they end up showing his face. So I don't know why they spent any amount of energy making a mask for this guy, since it's basically a first person shooter. Um, it's way too long, and I'll tell you how you can tell this movie is too long is when they start drawing out scenes for the sake of drawing out scenes, and that's every scene in this movie from the time that he is resurrected till the ending. I mean, the car ride scene is almost unbearable, um, because you're basically a ride along with these two women on their way to the hospital, which they never get to. But um, it's just it's almost unbearable, and that's what hurts this movie the most. Like Jay said, we talked about before. This should have been a short film, or they should have split it in half. And what I mean by that is the first 45 should have been developing everything up to the point of him being resurrected. I think he's resurrected way too early for a movie where you're going to watch him walk across a field. You're going to watch him walk up to somebody's house. You're going to watch him drag a guy into a barn and then cut his arm off with a log splitter and then cut his head off. Which again is another scene that's so drawn out.
That one, I forgot to even put that in my notes. That was such an odd scene to me because it didn't go the way you thought it was going to go.
Yeah.
Like, I personally thought he was going to lay him down. Here's what I didn't like about that scene, though. Here's what I hate about that scene is why the fuck is this undead Johnny? He's like, hey, this is what's about to happen to you. Watch. And then he turns the machine on. He did that for us, obviously. Like, they did that for us, but it just felt so misplaced and so odd that
and that's something where it should have, that machine should have already been going. If you want to explain what's happening, it's in the background moving along, and you know what's going to come. I mean, we're smart enough as consumers to realize, oh, sharp pointing thing moving back and forth, that's going to kill something. Regardless of what the purpose of that machine was. Even if you were a city person who didn't know that thing was going to split logs, you're going to know that that's going to split this guy. But again, it's one of those scenes where when you watch it, you're like, well, this is just drawn out for the sake of making this reach that hour 30 cap. I looked it up when you said it's hour 34. And 45 minutes of this movie you could completely cut out and would not change one iota of this film.
It was like a Dragon Ball Z episode. It's like an entire season of Dragon Ball Z. I didn't even think about the comparison until just now. Now, we've said it before. If you take one season of Dragon Ball Z and take out so much stuff, it's like 10 episodes. That's a season.
Exactly. You could take out so much dialogue where they're just jawing back and forth and not progressing. I can't tell you how many episodes of Dragon Ball I watched where by the end of it, I was like, did anything happen? Like, I think Krillin may have got punched in the face at one point, but other than that, there wasn't really anything important. Next time on Dragon Ball Z, more chatting in the air, and then a couple of fight scenes where they move really quick so you can't really see anything. That's what this movie suffers from. It suffers from somebody wanting to make something unique, which they did, make something that hadn't really been done in this style, but didn't have enough substance to fill that. And you had enough people to kill in the movie if you wanted to space those kills out in a way, or have just a big buildup at the end where he's, like in a lot of horror movies where there's just kind of like the mass exodus where he just starts mowing through people. But like I said, everything, like you said, the lake scene where you're like, well, he should be there by now. Well, he probably should have. Maybe he should have taken a boat, anything other than what he did, because it's just so drawn out. And at a point, you're sitting there watching it and you're just like in La La Land, imagining him walk across the bottom of this lake because you don't have anything else to do. But like I said a minute ago, I think this movie should have been shot half and half. I think the first 45 should have been following these 20 somethings as they're going there, kind of their story, the guy explaining, because I don't imagine, I mean, unless you're Ash Williams, I don't imagine you going to a cabin or something where a homicidal monster lives that you're aware of, and you don't. Hey guys, by the way, if you see a shack with a amulet in it, don't touch it. I feel like there could have been a little bit of building to that. I think you could have even made some like flashback scenes, and then have one of the guys accidentally come across it, take the locket, and then you start the next 45 is him from his point of view stalking them, or split it kind of back and forth. There's just not enough substance. And Castaway, which was supposed to be Tom Hanks's third Oscar shot, suffered from the same thing. I mean, as great of an actor as Tom Hanks is, there's only so much Tom Hanks you can take by himself before you're kind of bored of Tom Hanks. And that happens in Castaway. I mean, the biggest scene that anyone remembers from that whole section of the movie is him floating in the water and Wilson floating away. But you forget the whole, oh, fire, I made fire, and then him harpooning a fish from 20 meters away with a stick after he's been on the island for 3 years. There's a lot of stuff in between that you kind of forget because it's such a boring trip in the movie. And that's what this is. This movie just gets boring. The gun scene I thought was an interesting take. You usually don't have somebody who knows what to do to stop the evil. And here you have somebody explaining how to stop the evil because they've been through this before. So I thought that was kind of a unique take on the unstoppable force that most of the big horror bads are. It doesn't matter what you do. It doesn't matter if you shoot Michael 6 times. It doesn't matter if you set Jason on fire. It doesn't matter if you behead Freddy. They're coming back. And so I thought it was kind of neat that he explained how they dealt with him before, so that somebody, it wasn't just like they were all surprised. Somebody was aware of who this was, knew what was going on, and had a plan for how to stop him. Of course, it goes haywire. Does he just squeeze his spine until he's paralyzed? Is that what happened in that?
Yeah, I think, and that was rough. That part alone was rough. Like, you knew he was in for some shit because he was just paralyzed.
Yeah,
still alive. Like, ugh.
Yeah, and that was probably the scariest thing in the movie. I'll spoil the big kill, the cliffside scene, just because for me, as a nurse, when I was watching it, I was like, well, that's impractical. First of all, he punches her through the spine. So how did she turn around on the cliffside? Her legs shouldn't be working. She should have crumpled and fallen off the cliff. That should have been how that played out, but it doesn't because movie magic. And suspend belief. Obviously, there's a homicidal, unkillable maniac that's stalking these people. So
why
we'll forget
would you
that.
even turn around at that point?
and she accepted
coming.
her fate. Yeah, she got to the cliff edge. She realized, oh, I don't have anywhere to go, and then she just turns around like
jump,
like a martyr.
Bitch. Jump! I would have jumped. Like,
I would have done anything other than what she did.
Yeah.
All of that scene when he pulls the chain and the hook through her and then puts it in her head and then starts to pull. The chain would have the hook would have popped out before it pulled her, because as the angle's going, it would have slipped out. It's super brutal, like you said, for the sake of being brutal, to be that scene that people are like, oh, you got like Terrifier 2, you got to see the bedroom scene. Oh, you got to see the cliff scene. But it was just like, I mean, at that point, it's so brutal that it's absurd, if that makes sense. It's kind of like Terrifier 2. That scene is so brutal that it just you kind of almost become numb to it, because you're like, okay, this is too much. We've gone way beyond. When her head does come through, that was crazy. And then the bone in her neck popping up when he starts to pull. I mean, those are the kind of things that happen. We talked on the last episode. You see in the movie and you feel it. Like I felt my neck separate when that happened. But again, it's just there for a scene to be talked about, for a reason to hopefully put butts in seats when somebody comes back after seeing it, or what they were hoping, I'm guessing, was somebody to come back, oh, you got to see In a Violent Nature. What they didn't expect was a 41% from fans who probably had the same expectation, paying $10 for a ticket and then realizing you're going to watch a guy walk through a field. It was much like The Revenant. We talked about this off air. I don't think John's seen it. Jay, have you seen The Revenant?
No.
So
So I
wow,
owned it. I owned it,
a
and I never
movie that I've seen
watched
that y'all haven't. This has never happened. This will never happen again in the history of this show. So
it.
y'all
Mark the
revel in it
date.
for a minute because I'm gonna bask in the glow of my superiority right now. but, but there's a scene in The Revenant after Leo, and that's another one where it's the bear attack is the thing that everybody remembers from that movie. John mentioned that he even remembered it, and he's never seen the movie. Um, but after that, once he recovers, there's like what feels like 20 minutes of this movie where Leonardo DiCaprio is just crawling across the ground because legs no work good after bear attack, and it's just and then it's a wide shot, and then it's a landscape shot. I'm like, oh my god, just either kill him or get him to where he's going. and, um, that's what this movie is. It's just drawn out. And by the way, The Revenant should not have been what Leo won his Oscar for. Wolf of Wall Street is the movie he should have won it for. If you ever watch The Revenant, he's not even the best actor in that movie. Props to Tom Hardy for being amazing as always. So if you've never seen The Revenant, you can back me up when you finally do watch it. Tom Hardy steals that movie from Leo. They gave him a pity Oscar because they had dropped the ball so many other times in his career. um, all of that. Um, I wrote something down when Jay was talking, and then I'll pass it on to John to see what John thought. This movie's not really scary. It's tense. It's tense because you already know it's coming. A lot of the tenseness in normal horror films comes from the unknown. Here we're exposed to the unknown. We see him go into the house and kill the guy in the beginning. We don't see the death, but we see the build up to it. We see him stalk the girl on the cliffside. We know what's coming because we are behind the mask, so to speak. So while this movie's not scary, it's very unsettling in the way that they portray the intenseness of what's going on. It's one of those things where the cliche of the people yelling in the theater were like, girl, run, he's coming. We know he's coming, we are him, and we almost want to shout out, oh my god, how can you not hear me coming? I mean, you can hear the leaves crunch, you can hear the grass. How do you not realize that there's some large murder monster that's coming up behind you? And so that's where the tenseness, that's where not necessarily the scariness, but feeling of dread comes from in this movie. Is it's coming, you're okay, just get there now, please. I'm tired of being on the edge of my seat. Just get there, murder whoever you're going to murder, and let's move on to the next scene because you're killing me in the build up to this. So I don't hate it. I feel like this movie could have been something better if they would have found a way to maybe blend the two sides of the mask, the exterior and the interior. Or if they would have just said, 45 minutes, we're going to do a short film. We're going to release this on a streaming service, so that we can condense a lot of it. We're still going to show some of the walking so that you do have the sense of how does he sneak up on these people. And sometimes you just don't see what's coming when it's so obvious. You don't see the person you're about to walk into in the mall because you're so focused on yourself, and they're just another entity. They're just another thing in the background. So I feel like if they would have just made this movie short, took away a lot of the filler that they used to expand this movie into an hour 30, it could have been better. I think it would have got a better score. Or if they would have, like I said, blended it better. But yeah, John.
I went into it wanting to hate it because I'd heard so much about it, and I kind of was told that it was this art film. So my anticipation was going to be that I was going to hate it and despise it. I actually like it, honestly. It's definitely Friday the 13th. It's an homage to Friday the 13th. Jason, Johnny, the mother's locket, Mrs. Voorhees. It's pretty much Friday the 13th, the game, if you've ever played that. That's what this is, right? You're walking, it's third person view of the killer, you're stalking. The characters are kind of like parodies, right? All the characters are idiots. You want them to die. Like every character in this film is just a total fucking idiot. Their dialogue is stupid, they're stereotypical. The guy with the gun at the end, he's a dumbass. He shoots it. They sit there. They could have gotten in the car. Everybody in this movie is a total idiot. So I was rooting for Johnny to kill every one of them because they were all complete unlikable idiots. I had the same problem with the pacing and the style as you both did. I think that in theory, because when I saw it, I think what they were trying to do is they obviously were fans of Friday the 13th, the game. And I think they were fans of Terrence Malick movies like The New World. Because in Terrence Malick movies, there's these long shots of the people walking. And like in Barbarian, if you remember that scene in Barbarian where the killer in the flashback or the kidnapper, he's like walking and it's playing the music and it's kind of this long scene of him he breaks into the girl's house and unlocks the window. Well, he didn't break in. He pretends to be a repair person, unlocks the window. That was a great scene. And I think that was sort of their inspiration, was to do an entire film like that. But, it's tricky because there's only so much tension and anticipation you can get. And the characters, you don't like them. What I would have done differently is make more of a traditional Friday film. Like I would have had it to where it's fine to do the stalking and the walking. I would have cut down on maybe half of that, and I would have spent that time actually building the characters up a little more. So basically, he's coming, but you focus so long in the characters that you forget he's out there, to where when he does come, you're like, oh shit, I forgot. Like, because they didn't space it out just enough to where you forgot. If they could have done that, I think it would have been a lot more of a gotcha. I do think the stalks are great. I thought the water thing was great because you see it in the background. You can see this girl just go, huh! And she goes under. The cliff scene was crazy because when that happens, you can hear pieces of her falling down the rocks into the water. That's what got me, was like, I was looking at you because you're just like clump, 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 clump going into the water. And it's like, ugh. Because he basically, it's absurd, right? He just like totally eviscerated this girl. And like you were saying, she's standing there and she doesn't jump. I feel like they did that on purpose because these characters are idiots. Like if you ever played the Friday the 13th game, the characters are just idiots. You're just totally waiting for Jason to just kill all these motherfuckers. Like they're just total idiots, right? There's nothing likable about them. They're just, and I have to hope that the filmmakers knew that. Otherwise, like if they didn't know that, they're idiots. I would assume they knew that going in. If they honestly thought we're supposed to like these people, then yeah, mission failure majorly. The Mask. So I liked The Mask, and I think the reason I liked The Mask was because basically the story is he's a kind of like a mentally handicapped child. They don't like, these firefighters don't like him. They trick him into going up this water tower. He falls off, and then his spirit comes back for revenge because they steal the locket. And the mask that he breaks into, the place and steals, is a firefighter mask. It's a real firefighter mask. That was the symbolism, was that he was putting that mask on because it represented the people that basically were responsible for his death. That was kind of what they were going for. I do agree it was kind of a weird looking, like you're talking about a minion mask. I could see what you mean by that. I liked it, but I also think the unmasked was better because he looked like when it actually shows his face, he looks a lot like Jason in Friday the 13th Part 3. He's just got like the milky eyes, and he's like got the car, and he's really just like a child, right? And I think that's why his kills are so crazy, is he's this vengeful spirit like Jason, but he's basically like a 10-year-old. He's like a 10-year-old killing people. So it's like, if you can imagine like a 10-year-old ghost in this monstrous body who comes back and, he wants to seek revenge, it's like, it would be demented almost, right? Because the imagination will be going wild. I'm probably making excuses for this movie. I know I'm making a lot of excuses for stuff. The more I thought about it, like I watched it, I was kind of mixed on it, and then I thought about it, and I was like, okay, I kind of see what they were doing there. I kind of see why they did that there.
I'm enjoying this. I honestly came into this thinking you weren't going to like it. You had already kind of told me that you did enjoy it, but had I not known that information, this is one of those films where, I don't think John's going to care for this.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I didn't think I would, and I didn't love it. I did like it, and I will say, I think just because it's basically an homage to Friday the 13th, I probably have a little bit of like nostalgic love. So that probably helps it for me. Because in my mind, like as I'm watching it, there's parts of it where I'm just like, this is pretty much a Friday the 13th film if you just let it be. Um, but I do think the pacing and the walking, I mean, I 2X to that stuff. So like towards the end when he's walking, oh yeah, I was just 2Xing that. Like he was like power walking for me. I was not gonna sit through all that, right? Um, and the ending, so the lady who picks up the girl, she was in Friday the 13th Part 2. Her name is Lauren something in real life. Um, so it's kind of cool they brought her in as like the lady who saves the girl. But I kind of like the ending because, when she stops the car, John, the locket is gone. So you assume that Johnny got his locket back. But you see her looking out into the woods, and then you see that it's like an homage to Halloween. You see like the open spaces in the woods where you're like, where is he? Is he here? Is he there? Did he go back underground? So I kind of like that ending. I know that it's sort of ambiguous, but I enjoyed it. So yeah, overall, I was a fan of it. I didn't love it. I didn't hate it, but I think overall I kind of moved more towards liking it. So
That was one of my notes too, like the ending, like how we thought it actually did end. Do we think he got his locket and went back to sleep? If he did, why? Like I don't understand the whole locket connection to him. I thought at first maybe it's something that's keeping him there, like it was some sort of a ritual or some sort of a curse. So I'm not. I would like to know the mythology behind that a little bit more. But yeah, I like the ending, except it was too long. Also, what was the woman doing to the girl?
What do you mean when they stopped the car?
Yeah.
She was bleeding. She was bleeding out. Remember, she
Okay,
tried to
so
get her
she
to
was-
talk to her,
okay.
and then she was like, "We've got to stop the bleeding."
Well, the
I will
only
say
thing I
about the
saw
locket,
looked
I think the
gray.
locket's kind of just like a thing, a simple charm to show that there was humanity at some
Okay.
point. There's
it was his
obviously a
mom's.
human.
Yeah.
Yeah, there was a human before there was a monster.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So he just wanted to go get mommy's locket back. The ending where they stopped the car, the reason I was kind of confused, and I thought it was something along those lines, but like I felt like whatever she was using looked different to me. It almost looked like she was shackling her to me. Again, late at night.
What doesn't make sense about that scene is we've seen him stalk. We know he's super slow. They drove for 15 minutes. There's no way he caught them.
Right.
Unless he
They
was
did not
unless he-
show anything supernatural where he could appear somewhere down the road.
Yeah, but that's still you still thought he was coming back out, and the fact that he didn't, I enjoyed that. Also, she was planning to burn him. I guess she was planning to trap him in a bear trap, and then was she going to try to set him on fire?
Maybe.
Like,
Yeah,
she
because
had
I
the
think.
gas tank and the bear trap and the necklace.
Hmm.
She set that down.
Yeah.
She put and then I'm like, when she started walking, she put the gas can down. She put the locket on it. She started walking away. I'm like, she's got a gun. He's going to come grab that locket. She's going to shoot the gas can. Like that's kind of what I thought. I would have hated that with the rest of the movie tone, but that's kind of what I thought she was going with it. But she's like, fuck it. I'm out. I'm going to leave this here. It's all yours. I do like the ending where we're assuming he's gone. We're assuming he's accomplished what he was out to achieve, and now he's gone back to slumber. Whereas the other side of that coin is he's still out there and he's still going to chase her slowly. But
Well, I like the thought too because it's along the lines of the Leprechaun movies, where once the killer gets what they desired, they're done.
Right.
A lot of them, it's
Right.
always they're constantly stalking forever. At least in this, there is some kind of peace for the person, which is also why I've always hated the Leprechaun movies and loved them. I love them because I love the Leprechaun. I hate them because I hate the people in it. I'm like, just give him his gold back. He's just murdered 3 of your friends in front of you. All he said is, "Give me my gold back, and I'll leave you alone." And you still, no, hell no, this is my gold. Like, is it really worth it?
I didn't expect to hear Leprechaun in this episode.
Just give me my locket.
That makes total sense. I don't know if that's more terrifying or not, because again, the way he killed people, it wasn't just like, I just need my locket, guys. Come on back. I'm gonna stab you. No, like they were all incredibly brutal, and like he beats the one to the pulp in the head. Like that's kind of a reason why I did expect him to come back, because even though he got his locket, he's like, no, fuck this. You were involved. You have to die. Like, it wouldn't have surprised me if they went that direction too.
And I will say the chain and the giant meat hook is a terrifying weapon. I mean, the hatchet aside, just the way he wielded that was super terrifying.
Oh
Yeah,
yeah.
that was a great weapon. Is that what Kane had in See No Evil? Didn't he have something like a hook?
Yeah, he did. He had a chain. It was something like it's like a
Not
hook,
as
yep.
good of a film by any means. Whenever WWE backs your film, it's not going to be that great. But one last thing before we get to our rankings: the car horn scene, I didn't like either. How did he know to do that? And how did he know the timing? He's like, you know what? I'm going to put this stick, make this car horn go off. Homie's going to come out. I'm going to sneak up on him. I know it's going to take him the same amount of time it takes my slow ass to walk around the entire house. Like, as soon as he did that, I thought he was just going to go in. I thought they were going to start running out on the front porch, and then he was going to be right there waiting for him. Instead, he honks his horn, and then he walks around the entire fucking house, and then he comes back to do his business. Like, that was odd to me, especially since with the car scene, we see that his mental capacity is 10 or below. He's playing with a car. He's also a zombie. How did he know to do that? How did he know to calculate
made
it?
To stretch out to fit a full length film. It's just another scene where they're okay. We press for time. We got extend. Talk a little more. We're not ready for the commercial break. I mean,
I wouldn't have shown his face. Honestly,
I wouldn't have either.
I think a blurred viewing of it, like
when you see him in the woods without it, it's dark, so you may not have seen it when you were watching it on your phone or tablet, but on my couch with the lights off, you could see him pretty clearly standing in the woods. That would have been sufficient for me. I didn't like the close up. I understand why they did it. We got a little bit more insight on him. But yeah, it
was like a cut scene in the video game, like John was talking about, where we get to see him act childlike.
Yeah. I would almost put money that they wrote that cliff scene before they wrote the rest of the movie. They're like, we have this idea. It's going to blow your tits off with violence, and it's going to make you hurt. It's going to make you cringe. And then what can we do? What can we put around it? Yeah, the ending with the car scene should have been 10, 15 minutes shorter. I almost thought maybe she was, I guess she couldn't have been the mom, but I thought maybe she was related to Johnny to some degree, or was aware of him and might have just turned the car around at some point, or been driving her back to Johnny. But I'm also glad they didn't do that either. So
I think a better ending, and this is just for me, I always overthink everything when it comes to this kind of stuff. But I think if you have them drive away, you have the conversation, and then you just pan out and you see him step out of the woods, and you see that one more time, you see that behind shot of him, and you see him watch them drive away, and maybe you can see the locket in his hand.
Yeah, that'd be cool.
And then you just leave it there. There's no point in having all that dialogue.
Yeah. Or even they look in the rearview mirror and he's standing in the middle of the road, and then he just turns around and walks him back into the woods. I agree. That would have been better. Mm-hmm. But yeah, totally a short film that they stretched to a feature. So let's give our rankings. Like you, John, I thought about it after watching it. Like I said before we started recording, I'm like, there's not a lot of films out there that make me cringe anymore because I'm so desensitized. This one did it on several occasions. It's sloppy to a degree, but again, they were just doing filler. But I just watched the Barbie and Kendra Crash Joe Bob's Jamboree. It's 50 minutes long. You can make this movie an hour. There's one that came out post-COVID. I think it was called Host, where they're all like us talking to each other and shit starts going down. It was an hour long. Like, you could have made this an hour and still been just as effective. But with all that being said, after thinking about it, and I'm like, would I tell someone else to watch this? And would I watch it again? Would I own it? I ended up giving it a 4 out of 5. All right, Kelan.
Yeah, and this goes again. I know I have a history of shitting on movies that other people hold in high regard, and it's surprising that this movie has a 41%. Even with everything else aside, you can see what they were going for. They had definitely had a clear vision. It's just stretched. It's just stretched in scenes where it doesn't really need to be. And if you condense that, like John said, watch it on 2 times speed when you get to some of those scenes. And this is not a bad film. I mean, it's got solid kills. The main baddie is pretty scary. I mean, it's like you said, it's Jason Voorhees, and we're all terrified of Jason. Maybe not Jason Takes Manhattan so much when he's kicking boom boxes, but
that's one of my favorites. That's one of my favorite ones.
But you're not. I mean, you're not scared of this guy. This is, and it goes back to that thought that what's in the woods. I mean, whatever's in the woods sees you probably before you see it. And that's what this whole premise is the killer knows where you're at before you even know he exists. So it's not terrible. I think 3 is fair. I think like I said, I think 41% audience score is kind of absurd for a movie that isn't bad.
I wonder if it was the brutality that kind of changed that, and also the length. But
well, it's weird because Art gets a pass, I guess, for being goofy in Terrifier 2 because that scene's way more brutal.
Right, but he shrugs. He's like, "Oopsie daisy! Look what I done did." That's what makes it different. Where this guy doesn't speak, he doesn't act, he has no remorse. I think that probably turned a lot of people off. So I get that. All right, John.
Yeah, I do think this killer is a bit more like Michael Myers than Jason, honestly, in that he's a child, but he's kind of crafty. Like you were talking about, he's walking around the house and waiting for the guy so he can sneak up on him. There's a maliciousness to it, but there's also this slow, methodical nature to it.
Like Michael driving the car. He's never had a license. How would he know how to drive? Yeah. He knows how to use stop signs.
He did perfectly well last night. Yeah. It's in the ending, I do agree it was too long. I think the reason for them making that was the lady was telling the story about her family member getting attacked by the bear, which I actually think what that was she was basically telling the story of this happening to someone else, but she didn't know it was him because she was talking about it felt like the guy, when he fell in the water, he lost sensitivity. I actually think what happened was Johnny attacked this person. He fell in the water. They saved him. And that they just assumed it was a bear, but in fact, it was probably some dumbass grabbing the locket again. And this happened before.
And they showed the bear traps. He could have used a bear trap on the guy, and he just assumes this was something biting me.
Yeah, I agree with that too, John. And also, I think her telling that story told you the ending that was left somewhat open ended, where it does he come back, does he not? That story, they don't see him again, right? Mm-hmm. So same thing with this one. Like, okay, it was done. He got what he wanted. He left. He's not coming back. So I think it was kind of foreshadowing that ending where, he got what he needed. He's not going to be coming back.
Exactly. And I think he was gone. It's one of those things where I liked it. I do think it's like a video game. I can't stress it enough. Like, this is literally like a love letter to Friday the 13th, the game. I mean, it's so similar. And the characters, the way they're structured, the way everything was done, it's not perfect, but I do like it. For me, it was initially I was like a 3, but honestly, I would probably say 3.5 out of 5. It's really good, but I have problems with the way they structured the story. I would have, at the end of the day, I would have made it somewhere in between a Friday the 13th film and a little bit of this art house stuff. Like, I would have just kind of blended them a little better. Personally, but yeah.
It's a borderline A24 film that's not an A24 film.
Right. And I bet A24 bid for it. So that puts us at a 3.5. So in a violent nature, 3.5. Also, John, I want you to say something so everyone can take a look at your new background. You got a new light, you got the TV going, but you got to speak.
Woo! Check it out. Horror Sanctum, got it on.
It made me, after you sent me a picture of what your new setup looked like, I'm like, shit, I'm going to have to step up my game. I still do the green screen, but I moved my light. So I do think
I was say John looked super badass for a second because he was like half in the shadow, like when he was backed up and his face, your face was turned to the side, and you were like half of your face was shadowed.
That's funny.
John's always badass though. I moved my light down to kind of compete with you, but I don't have a cool background. Like, my desk would have to be in the middle of this fucking room to have like my movies and everything behind it. Because originally that's what we did. If you remember, if you go back and watch our first couple episodes where we're all on the screen at the same time, I did it over here in this corner, and I had like posters, and I was thinking about, it'd be cool if I had like a shelf or something, then I can rotate out things that relate to the movies we're talking about. But then I'm like, I'm not going to be able to relate every movie. I don't have anything of a violent nature besides this Jason Live shirt. So
the only thing I could not figure out in this movie that threw me off was the time, because they initially were telling the story and they were saying 10 years ago. And then later on, the guy was like, oh, something happened 20 years ago. So I'm like, in my mind thinking, okay, how old is Johnny?
Well, the synopsis says 60 years ago.
Yeah. So
that's when he died.
Okay. So I
maybe
don't
one
know.
Of those was the bear.
Okay.
People just keep fucking with his locket.
Yeah. Every time that he comes back, this is just the most recent. Because again, you have the scene where the guy's explaining, we've been through this before. I know how to get him back in the ground. Like, so obviously the whatever lore or whatever has passed down up until he gets his spine scrunched.
Right.
So people are aware that Johnny exists.
Yeah, I think so too. All right, so that's going to be it for this episode. Subscribe to our YouTube channel, to wherever you're listening to this podcast. Follow us on Instagram, follow us on TikTok, join our group on Facebook, and if you have Amazon Music, I have a playlist on there as well featuring music artists that revolve around episodes we've done. So check that out as well. All right, signing off. I'm Jay with Johnny and Kelan, and until next time,
keep it spooky. Can you tell that I have sweat through my shirt? Basically,
I just thought you were straight from the pool.
Oh my god, so hot!
You going back to the pool?
I didn't even get to get in the pool because they're finally getting their deck built. It took 2 years, and my connections as a mason, but finally found somebody that could build their deck, and they're getting it done finally.
Did you frame that poster yet?
No, I thought I had an extra frame, and then I went through all of my pictures, and I was like, shit, I don't have an extra. I might take my machine head poster out because I don't cherish that as much as the cake one. Which, speaking of cake, I actually found at Great Escape Charlotte, Prolonging the Magic. They had 2, which I'd already gotten one of them. So now I have 3 cake vinyls.
Sweet.
And a box set somewhere that I don't know where it's at. I don't know how it disappeared, but it was at my parents' house.
You bought 3 of the same album, or you're saying you have?
No, I've got Motorcade of Generosity, Prolonging the Magic, and Fashion Nugget.
Fashion Nugget's my favorite.
That's what it should be. It's everybody's.
Also, has anyone else seen them live? If you're listening out there to our post-mortem, they suck live.
Really?
They suck so bad. They're one of my favorite bands of all time. That's why I was probably disappointed. 20 songs. Man, it was so bad. You know how we talked about how this was drawn out? Imagine that in a concert setting where the singer, instead of actually, singing, spends so much time talking. Like there's 20 minutes of the concert where he gave away a fucking tree.
Right. What? And you could register it on their website
tree in a pot that somebody had to take home after the concert and promise to plant and then post to their website so they could track the trees they gave away.
That's some greenwashing. That's some brainwashing.
It was so bad.
It was terrible. And I felt so bad. And this was, I think I didn't take you to this. I think you took me, right? Like
probably
you had tickets. I think Megan probably got you tickets, but I felt so bad because you'd never seen them live before. I'm like, this is Kellan's favorite band. I'm excited for him as your bud. And then I'm just sitting there. And it's almost like I was looking at you, like when Lindsay and I are watching a movie and I'm making sure she's not on her fucking phone.
Yeah.
It's like I kept looking at you to see if your smile had evaporated. And it did eventually. They just kept talking. I'm like, bro, you know who else is not good live that I love is Seether. And Seether didn't do it for me live for the opposite reason, because they never spoke. And they went from song to song. And I'm like, and it's not like they bled into each song. It was like, all right, here's this song. All right, we're done. A few seconds off the clock. Here we go again. And normally that would be something you would appreciate because you get more music that way. But for some reason, I'm like, I don't like this. Like, acknowledge us to a degree. And I'm sure they said a few words, but the whole time it was just like trying
the
too
cake
hard.
The cake concert had 2 things working against it. One, Ben Folds, who has maybe 3 songs, played for an hour and a half. Nobody came to the Ben Folds cake concert to see Ben Folds play the B-sides of any of his albums. But damn if he didn't. And then 2, it was like a Tuesday night, and there's a curfew for the Ascend Amphitheater where they're supposed to stop playing music at 10 p.m. How are you going to have a live concert venue in Music City and has a curfew? Like, they literally were like, right before they played The Distance, which was their last song,
That makes sense.
the singer was like, so we've got about 2.5 minutes, which that song's about 2 minutes. He's like, we got about 2.5 minutes before they said they cut the power off because there's a 10 o'clock curfew here. So we're going to play The Distance. By that point, I was like, I don't give a fuck if you play, Stairway to Heaven or Go Fuck Yourself through the trumpet, because I'm done. I'm done with you guys.
So,
as much as I love Cake,
wow.
I was by the time all they did was play their hits. Like they played like Sheep Go to Heaven. They played No Phone. They played Frank Sinatra. I mean, they played like the songs that people know, but there was just so much downtime. Like at one point, I think he was just talking about like his breakfast. It was just so bad.
So did they sound good? Like, did they sound?
They sounded just like you would expect.
Okay,
they
so
sounded. I mean,
okay.
It's hard not to sound normal when your singing voice is talking. He doesn't necessarily quote unquote sing in a lot of the songs. It's very sing-songy.
Right.
So it's hard to mess that up. They sounded great when they were playing. Now, that also to say that I did take Jay to another show of one of my other favorite bands. I don't know if you've heard of Franz Ferdinand.
Yeah. No.
So I love Franz Ferdinand, and Jay even agreed that was one of the best shows he had been to. It was at Third Man Record, the Blue Room. That was amazing. They were fantastic.
Andre 3000 just played like 3 shows, and I'm like, I want to go see him, but they were like $250 tickets. But yeah, Franz Ferdinand, but that was also I only knew like 2 or 3 songs. I actually listened to more leading up to it, but that was one of those, like, everybody knew Take Me Out. Everybody had that CD. So to go into a concert where it's not necessarily your people and to see a good show, that makes an impact. Bravo, remembering that Cake was on a fucking Tuesday. I didn't remember that at all.
You know who I've heard is like really good now, but is older, you wouldn't think would be good, is Def Leppard. I've heard that they're actually like still very good. If you're into that, like they play a good live show, which is weird.
I would see Def Leppard.
You know?
That's one of those bands that has a sneaky catalog. Like,
yeah,
you start playing their greatest hits, and you're like, damn, they have a lot of songs that are good.
Yeah.
Before we everybody got on with the Ben episode, he was talking about Guar because I had my Guar shirt on. That's another show that's just fantastic. They're coming
Guar
back.
was really good. I didn't know what to expect. Jay kind of clued me in a little bit. But yeah, that was a good time. Obviously they're doing their own thing. So when there's mistakes or there's hiccups and stuff, it just kind of adds to the atmosphere. But yeah, that was a great show.
Have you watched that documentary yet? Did we watched it together before the show, didn't we?
Yeah.
Okay. Good documentary, John.
The documentary was great too. Yeah.
Well, they're kind of deceiving because they're one of those bands that like you look at them and you're like, oh my God, this is going to be like Cannibal Corpse or something. And then when you hear them, you're like, oh, okay. You're like, it's
Cannibal Corpse is trash. I don't care what anyone says.
They're closer to Ghost. Like Ghost looks like, this is going to be metal and Hail Satan and all.
It's more like melodic.
Yeah. Even Lindsay likes.
You can understand the lyrics.
Right. Speaking of that, we'll get out of here. But you said Tom Hardy. That was my biggest knock on the Bike Riders is Tom Hardy. I can't understand a goddamn word. So I saw it in theater, so I can't put my closed caption on. I'm like, what did he just say? Take the marbles out of your mouth, Tom.
Yeah.
He was like that in what's the movie Brinson?
He mumbles a lot. He mumbles.
Yeah. He's so good though. He's a fantastic. And I highly recommend the Bike Riders.
What's the movie where he plays the twins?
Oh
God,
The Drop
with the glasses. One of them's got the glasses.
Yeah, it's got that scene where he basically beats that guy with a hammer. But that one's another one where one of the two twins that he plays, he's like, you get the hole in the hammer. Like, it's like a specific choice where you're just trying to do the most Cockney accent you can possibly do.
Right.
Legend
he does have that.
He was in Legend where he plays twins.
Yeah, okay. He did good in Fury Road because I think that like Max was so crazy being out in the wasteland that it kind of made sense that he would be a bit like odd and mumble. Because like in that movie, he mumbles a lot in that
Mush
movie.
brain from being out in the desert.
Right.
That's what I had today.
But I would say he's probably a top 10 actor in Hollywood. As far as like if Tom Holland's in it, he's going to be great. Not Tom Holland shit.
But I agree with that too.
Tom Hardy's amazing.
He's good.
There's a rumor, and I don't know how true it is, that Ryan Gosling might be Ghost Rider. Have you seen this?
Wow.
I haven't seen it from a truly credible source yet. And I'm sitting there thinking about it. I'm like, no. And then I think about it, I'm like, yeah,
They could do it.
I think he would do it well.
Yeah.
But yeah, and John disappointed me because I thought I was going to be seeing Long Legs tomorrow, but it doesn't come out for 2 fucking weeks.
I wish. God,
What is
I
that?
would go tomorrow.
It's called Long Legs. So I sent you guys a link, but they actually made like a 95 styled website about these birthday murders. And that's what the movie's based on. And it's the girl from It Follows and Nicolas Cage. And the thing I just read recently was Malik Monroe, I think is her name.
Yeah.
She's fantastic. She was wearing a microphone and it picked up her heartbeat. And when she saw Nicolas Cage as this Long Legs character, her heartbeat sped up like crazy. So that alone, like, I'm stoked for that. So,
yeah,
Nicolas Cage.
He's got this like weird. So there are pictures you can find of it. It's like he's got these weird prosthetics, like a nose. So he looks crazy as shit. Like he looks like insane. But it's like if you can't really see like a full front view of him, but you can kind of see his nose and you can see his eyes.
But we know Nicolas Cage is not insane in real life.
Right. Right. Yeah.
But hey. I'm so glad he's come back the way he has. But all right. This is a good one. I think I'm gonna watch The Watchers tonight. So
tell me about that after you see it. Because that was one that I don't have strong opinions on, but there's definitely things in it when you watch it and you're just like, who's the blonde? I can never remember her name.
It's not Abigail Breslin, but it's Dakota Fanning.
Okay. Yeah. Abigail Bresling's where my mind always goes, but I know she's not great in this, like acting wise.
I don't mean been great in a while.
She's very one note throughout this whole movie. And it's kind of disappointing because she was so good.
I think the last movie I saw her in was something where she was writing Star Trek fan fiction and she kind of had like a mental disability. I can't remember the name of it. Patton Oswalt's in it, but she was good in that. But she's definitely fallen off a little bit. But
if you would have said that
happens.
If you just said Patton Oswalt was the one playing somebody writing Star Wars fan fiction with a mental disability, I would have thought it was a biopic.
I couldn't even figure out what The Watchers was about. Like I looked at pictures of it and I was like, what is this? Like I don't
it's about people watching.
Yeah, it's very M. Night Shyamalan at parts. But yeah, it's basically, and this doesn't spoil anything because they get to it pretty quick. But there's a group of people that are in this room with a one-way or two-way mirror.
Okay.
And they have to stand there every night at the same time for the Watchers. They don't know who the Watchers are, what they are. But if they're not there, they kind of go ape shit. So,
okay.
Yeah. And Dakota Fanning's character ends up getting pulled into it.
Yes. Well, cool. That's probably that's on my agenda tonight as of right now. So I'm going to watch some more Sopranos first. Also, the Barbie and Kendra was kind of awful. Crash Joe Bob's Drive-In, which were you on the episode, Kelan? Both y'all on?
No, the one with the actress
now, but yeah.
No, I missed that one.
No, are you talking about Charles Band's wife? Yeah, I was on that one.
Okay, Kelan was. I thought one of you may not have been. I mean, she's wonderful, and I like Cody Cameron, the other girl. They're both sweet as hell, and it's funny to parts. It's only 50 minutes long, and it should be. But they did. I don't know if anyone else saw he did a COVID movie, Corona Zombies.
Oh God!
So that's Cody. That's the other girl that stars in that. But they had another movie they were dubbing over that they were watching on TV that was live news. So they do the same thing here. It's some exorcism movie, and they're making up shit at the drive-ins. That was kind of rough. But it's worth 50-minute watch just because she's sweet. Robin Sidney.
Robin
Sidney. Just because Sweden came on our show and we want her husband to come on too. So I might go watch some Brie Grant movies too to prepare for that, even though it's going to be like 2 months away. I'm pretty excited about that. I know you guys are kind of like, yeah, it's fine, but I'm like, she's legit. She writes and directs.
Yeah, it's fine just because I don't have the repertoire that y'all have. So when
I gave you the list to watch,
you would know her
that you bring on. I'm just like, never seen it.
You would know her, Kelan. Saw her.
I'm just trying to broaden.
I've looked. I've seen the pictures, and I'm like, I don't recognize her at all. But then Jay posts a list of movies, and I'm like, I've never even heard of those movies.
So the stylist is really good. John liked that one. The director might come on.
Yeah.
12-Hour Shift is more thriller than horror. I think she directed that one. It's fantastic. You should watch that one. It's just fast paced, like someone trying to buy organs. Did anybody watch the trailer? I sent it to you
I
guys.
did, yeah.
I did.
Nick Foley's in it.
Mhm.
Yeah, he was
so
he was playing like a bad guy, like a villain.
Yeah.
Which is weird. Yeah.
Yeah, but that one, and then Lucky is good. That's one where she gets attacked by a
Mhm.
guy, and everybody's just like, "You're so lucky, you're so lucky," and she's like, "But am I lucky?" And like, there's a scene where they're having guests over, and the guy's outside, and her husband's like, "Yeah, that's just the guy that tries to kill us every day." So it's just like a kind of a time
It's
loop
a-
thing where
yeah.
he's keep trying to get back to her. It's very good too. I found that it's $28 on eBay. I found it at McKay's the day I met you, John, for $7. So I was excited about that. But
Cool.
and then the other one, Torn Hearts, is Katie Seagal is a psycho gatekeeper of country music, and she's got these people that come to record, and she kind of won't let them leave. But everything Bree Grant has touched has been good, in my opinion. And she was in Beyond the Gates with Barb, but she's working on another movie right now. So, but anyways, we've talked long enough. Good episode. I didn't really freeze. I was just kind of stuck.
It's just-
And it was kind
I just
of,
went
you know,
with
and
it.
it's
Cake
super
is
exciting.
bamboozled.
It was super interesting that none of us hated it, considering it was a 41%. None of us hated this movie.
No, I have to admit, when it showed him on the tree and he was like, I kind of laughed. I did kind of laugh at the face because the milky eyes, I was just kind of like, it was
But
like,
you know, that was
Yeah.
almost like their way for us to sympathize with him.
yeah.
But if that's what their intention was, you should have done that shit in the beginning, because he
Right.
lost all empathy straight out the gate.
Yeah.
I mean, that was after the cliff scene where you just went out of focus, John. But yeah, I didn't quite understand that. It was just to let us know, like, hey, he's got issues. Oh yeah, we can see these issues. But I don't know. And him crushing that car, it was symbolic and to some degree, I'm sure. But
Mhm.
anyways, I enjoyed it more than I thought I would. So,
Same, for sure.
but I'm also not the hater on this show.
That's
You
me.
boys are. Yeah,
John hasn't been as much as I have.
You've
lately,
developed
but-
that character and you're running with it.
Well, hey, I
Honestly, it's
only
Vito.
run with
Thank
it-
you,
only run
Vito.
with it for a lot of times just for views. I'm kidding. No, I hated those movies. Creep Show sucked. Sorry, John.
I'm gonna go watch Creep Show.
Mm-mm. Boo.